Well, I'm finally back with a camera that I can use. And this is basically just to conceal my identity. I don't want to really show my face. So, we're going to be ripping on Zooier than Thou again, because why not? The podcast is still on YouTube. It's still disgusting, and this is obviously something that really hits home with me. Please keep in mind, zoophile and furry are not the same thing. These people do not belong in the fandom. And I am a pet owner, and I do not like seeing animals hurt whatsoever. So we're going to be looking at the episode titled Get Help. Another thing that kind of sits with me because, who hasn't really been to a therapist? I'm pretty sure most people have at this point, especially with everything that's going on. And, I guess they're trying to, say that it's completely normal to want to fuck animals. And to be honest, the number of likes on this video and just the positive comments I saw on it, downright concerning, very concerning. Not much else to say here, so let's get this party started.
Foxen writes, "Hi all. I don't usually write into podcasts, but I felt compelled to share a story with you and to ask for some advice. First, the story. As a young, quote, Zoomer popufur furry, almost 100% of my almost 3 years experience in the fandom has been through Twitter, where I was quickly conditioned to hate, reject, and denounce all things zoophile, and to block anyone using the Zeta symbol on sight. This began to change when some artists I like were subject to their own call-out drama over the past year or so for drawing feral, non-anthro art, with everyone on Twitter shouting about how it was apparently exactly the same as being a zoo sadist. I found myself quickly at odds with this hive mind of Twitter, as it turns out I do actually really enjoy feral art. This anti-zoophile conditioning really changed when a very close friend of mine came out to me as a zoo a few months ago.
Whoa.
Up until then, Twitter had told me that every single zoo was a disgusting animal abuser.
Okay, so of course, for this, they always have a thing where they read fan mail of some sort on this podcast, which is interesting because it shows that there are more fucked up people outside of this podcast who are unfortunately hiding themselves in the fandom. There's so much to unpack here with this one in particular. So, this person sounds like Kira the Wolf. I don't think it's him, but kind of sounds similar to him. I wouldn't say feral artwork is the same as you say to them. No, because no animals are actually being harmed, but it's still wrong in my opinion because it sexualizes actual animals, just like how Lolicon sexualizes actual children. Even if it's drawn, it's still wrong. Just another thing to note. And by the way, if my friend came out to me as a person who fucks animals or likes looking at Lolicon, I would not stay their friend. I would not, because it goes completely against my morals. And because this person is autistic, this isn't me being offensive or anything, but autistic people can be easier to manipulate. So I assume this is how they were able to get them on their side and tell them a bunch of lies about the zoophile community. Because there is no consensual way to engage with an animal. It's always rape. That should be obvious. Animals can't speak. They have the intelligence of human children. And of course, we are much bigger than they are. So it would probably hurt them really badly. And of course, I really just... I cannot describe how disgusted I am that this exists on YouTube. This here. I never thought I'd be in favor of bringing lobotomies back, but yeah. You know what? Let's just move on here. Because it only gets worse. Each of these episodes it's just awful to listen to. It will make you cringe, 100% guaranteed.
And should be hated. However, when my friend came out to me, this was entirely at odds with what I knew to be true about them. This friend was the kindest, most loving friend I've ever had, and loved his canine companion dearly. I could not possibly match up my Twitter-conditioned presumption of a depraved animal abuser to my newly out Zooey friend. This pretty much turned my view on human-animal relationships on its head, and since then we've chatted about how being a zoo works, what the zoo community is like, and where I can go to do some learning myself, which led me to your podcast. 2 episodes in, and I'm already disarmed at how openly and honestly you discuss, frankly, sex with animals.
Something else I forgot to mention with this little part here is that, big shock, most of these people, all of these people on these podcasts are compulsive liars. You know, Fausti, who used to be on this podcast, used a dog avatar. He died of colon cancer. Press S to spit. He was known for being a serial liar. He lied to the cops I don't know how many times. He lied to people in court because, yes, he was a criminal. He was known for smuggling hard drugs like cocaine across the border, and he was known for abusing animals and people alike. And all the while, he's trying to act all innocent and bubbly and happy on this podcast. And who's to say Toggle isn't guilty of something very similar, especially since they seem to be very lenient towards zoo sadism itself, and thought Kira was innocent, despite all of the evidence piled against him. But to be fair, there are still some furries who think that. I just don't know what else to say here. I don't know why this is still on YouTube. This is clearly very illegal. And who's to say it's not grooming younger audiences into wanting to fuck animals, especially with the cutesy, cartoony animals they use. I know it's a furry thing, but regardless, this stuff could be attractive to children.
Not only has your podcast helped me empathize with my Zooey friend more, as an autistic person this isn't easy, but has also helped me develop my new moral code when it comes to furry friends, from consensual sex with them to my consumption of meat. This is where I now ask for some advice. As my friend is only out to me and extremely few other people, what can I do to support them as an ally? It's hard to talk about Zooey stuff with anyone else, so I'm not sure what I can do best to support my friend. I'm separated by a continent and an ocean from them, so it isn't exactly easy to pick up things instinctively. Secondly, as I've been learning more about Zooey things, I found myself questioning my own attraction.
He found himself questioning his own attraction, eh? You see, this is why I don't support feral art. Because it is pornography for zoophiles. That is what zoophiles look at before they find actual criminal activity, actual recordings of animals being abused. And this is why I don't support Lolicon, because that is porn for pedophiles. Even if it's drawn, it still caters to those awful groups of people. And you see, this person mentioned liking feral art before becoming a zoophile. And because they found this podcast, instead of wanting to seek help for this, they decided to embrace their sexuality, and I use that very loosely. And this is why this podcast shouldn't exist. It is literally encouraging people to act on their desires instead of getting help. And it is disgusting, and I really don't like seeing animals abused. And this is just going to encourage people to abuse animals under the guise that it's love, which it really isn't. It is a perversion.
I am pretty clearly into feral porn and canine junk, But how can I safely explore whether I might in fact be a zoophile? Thirdly, and least importantly, which episodes are best to listen to? If I want to learn how this whole loving relationships and sex with canine companions things work, I haven't exactly had sex with a dog before, without subjecting myself too much to the more depressing zoo sadism topics, which episodes are best? With Love and Apples, Foxin' in the Field.
Oh, congratulations on turning around about zoosexuality.
You are not zoosexuals, you are zoophiles. Zoosexuality does not exist. There is no way you can get in a consensual relationship with a dog. Same as how you cannot get in a consensual relationship with a child. Because they are basically the same intelligence. And I don't understand how you can live with yourself if you're being an ally for zoophiles. I really don't understand how you can be okay with that and not be attracted to animals yourself. And the way they are always like, oh, thank you for turning your morals around for us. Thank you for changing your mind about zoosexuality. Something about that just makes my blood boil. Because it seems to me this person is actually thinking about wanting to fuck a dog. And of course, as they mentioned here, they do give advice on how to fuck a dog and how to do that without being spotted. And this is why people don't want to leave their animals unattended anymore, because of freaks like these. And I don't know what I'd do if someone tried to touch my cat. I'd probably go and find the nearest baseball bat.
Good on ya.
Yeah, especially in a place like Twitter where there's such strong pressure to conform.
Keep in mind that Twitter is not representative of something like Furry, or anything really. It's just Twitter. You'll see what I mean as soon as you spend some time with furries somewhere else, like in person.
Right, once you go to a con, you'll find this stuff isn't nearly as heated. Twitter lends itself to very fiery discourse.
To be fair, they are right about this. They are right about Twitter not being representative of everything. Twitter is just full of weirdos like zoophiles and maps. And another thing, yes, furries are, for the most part, very nice people. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little judgmental at first. I thought they were a little weird, but not too bad. But when I actually got to meet some in person, they turned out to be really nice, really accepting, really warm people. And when I went to a con, it was amazing. And of course, very, very friendly and warm. And that is what the furry community is known for. And unfortunately, you have people like this who wants to say that most furries are zoophiles, which is a lie. You will, if you ask 99% of furries will say, no, it's wrong to fuck a dog. And yes, I know some people are going to say, you look at furry porn, so that technically makes you a zoophile. But here's the thing. Anthropomorphic animals are basically humans. Yes, it is weird, but they are adult humans with animal features. So technically they can't consent, and so it is not technically zoophilia. But yes, it is borderline, I guess you could say. But most furries just don't want to fuck actual animals. And that is why there's so much backlash against feral art, which sexualizes actual animals that are on all fours and cannot speak.
And it's like everyone is performing a role to make sure that they stay in favor with everyone else. Once people let their fur down, it's not nearly as dire, and people speak more honestly.
We talked about purity spirals in the past. Part of what makes them so destructive is that social media is built for engagement, which can be really useful, but it also leads people to create a vast, brittle web of shallow connections to a lot of users.
So yeah, for this we're going to be skipping ahead a little bit because this podcast has a habit of being incredibly boring, just incredibly pseudo-scientific, pseudo-intellectual, just a bunch of bullshit splattered in between. So I'm going to skip to where it gets juicy. They are going to be interviewing, and I'm not kidding you here, a sexual therapist who is just as depraved as them. So, let's get to it, shall we?
Dr. Hani Maletsky to our podcast. Welcome, Hani.
Hello, hello. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited. For those of you who are living under a rock, Hani Maletsky is the author of Understanding Bestiality and Zoophilia, which is the first work of its kind, actually looking into our community. Among other super cool things, you did a book about mother-son incest, and you were a practicing sex therapist. All right.
Oh my god. Okay, so not only did she write a book on bestiality, but she also wrote a book on mother and son incest. Great start. Great fucking start. What else? Did she write a book on pedophilia? Did she write a book on necrophilia by chance? What the fuck? I wasn't kidding when I said this woman was depraved.
Now, one thing that I want to tell you, actually two things. One, when I visited my sex therapist and told them about the podcast, they actually texted me your name and said, "Why don't you interview Hani Maletsky?"
You had to go to your therapist to get that idea?
Oh, no. We've been wanting to that's the other thing I wanted to say, is that you were like our number one person we've ever wanted to interview. So, like, this is super thrilling to actually have you on this time. So I really appreciate you taking your time.
It's my pleasure.
So let's start with just a short overview of your professional background and your work. What led you to study zoophiles?
Well, I was in school doing my PhD, and I was supposed to figure out a topic to do my dissertation on. And I started working around the same time with this guy who was a zoo. And I tried to find information to figure out what to do with him because I had no idea. And the only thing I could find was, what's the name of that book? About the mayor.
Oh, the horseman.
The horseman, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that really moved me. And I decided that I am going to study that topic.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. And of course, it kind of evolved from a case study to something much bigger. You wrote an entire book.
Yeah. So with so many participants, when I was in the school, which was in San Francisco, I started telling people that this is going to be my topic. And I said, if you have anybody, send them over. Right now, I only have one case. I was okay with doing just a case study, but of course, it's more interesting if I could find more people.
Right.
And then one day I got a phone call from this lovely woman, and she told me that she was a zoo. And she said, do you want to come and meet with me? I'm in DC, I'm visiting. So I met with her in person. We had a lovely lunch. And then she told me that she and her boyfriend, who was also a zoo, could hook me up on the internet, which was like news to me. You know, it was the beginning of the internet. And you know, I'm very technologically challenged.
You did fine.
You did great today. You really did.
So they came to my home and connected me to the internet. And I was in a chat room with a lot of zoos from all over the world, which was so exciting. Can you imagine? First of all, it was my first introduction to the internet.
Interesting how this took place in San Fran. And I guess it took place like years ago when the internet just started. So at the very least, this is a fascinating topic, but it doesn't change the fact that I guess there are a bunch of people who like to fuck dogs in San Francisco. And she's not talking about nobody batted an eye, nobody said anything. It is cool, I guess, that she wanted to, like, study the psychology of them, but I don't understand why she seems to be just perfectly okay with it. I know therapists have to understand people, but if she's on this podcast, she obviously endorses it. She obviously supports it. And another thing, the woman she's studying has a boyfriend already, which is a common theme I've noticed with zoos. They already have a human partner. So at that point, is it technically cheating? Is it? Because I know if it were a consensual, loving relationship like these people claim, I don't think they'd be okay with, cheating on their human partner. But that's just me. Or maybe it's, simply because it's a kink and nothing more.
Secondly, to get to talk to so many, it was really an amazing experience. And from there, people started calling me and volunteering to be in the study. And I ended up with 82 men and 11 women.
All right.
Who responded. I had more, but some people did not send it back.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
and this would have been a paper survey back then, wouldn't it?
Yeah. They had to give me their actual address, and I sent it to them. They had to fill it out. It was, I think, 30 pages long.
Oh, my goodness.
It was huge. and then send it back to me, put postage and take it to the post office and send it back to me.
Oh, my goodness. We actually have a couple of people who have worked with our podcast who were actually in your original study.
That's cool.
Yeah. Now, my understanding, you have been interviewed by another super fantastic podcast, Renegade Ape, pretty recently.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that part of your ASEC training, bestiality and zoophilia was covered at some point, or at least mentioned a little bit, just so you prepared to respond if someone came to you with that actual issue.
Right. In order to become a certified sex therapist by ASEC, everyone has to go through what is called Sexual Attitude Reassessment, or SAR, which is usually a 2-day minimum workshop in which we get exposed to all kinds of sexual behaviors. And then we talk about it in small groups, just how we feel about it and reactions and so forth. Just to kind of, first of all, expose us to whatever's going out there. And then for us to reassess how we feel about it. Can we work with that kind of situation, with that kind of person, and maybe be more prepared?
What was that experience like, being exposed to all those things?
Well, I can tell you that when I was in school in San Francisco, one of the questions that they asked us in one of the classes was, what clients do you think you cannot work with? So I said, people who have sex with animals or with children.
Well.
And then I get this client who actually came to me after nobody wanted to work with him. And my heart went out to him. And I started working with him, and I saw that I can actually empathize, and I could work with him.
Wow.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, that's such an interesting transformation there, how someone's actual case can completely change how you feel about the subject.
The thing is that everyone, when they think about sex with animals, they immediately think that people are torturing the animal.
Right.
That's the first thing that comes to their mind. And when you're able to see it in a different way, then things change.
There we go. She admits it. She admits that she's okay with zoophilia. She admits it. This sex therapist basically says, people just think that the animal is being tortured. Even if the animal enjoys it, quote unquote, it's still going to fuck it up mentally. Its hormones are going to get all fucked up. The animal could experience aggressive or anxious behavior, which is why a lot of those animals end up getting put to sleep. It's sad, but just like any person who suffers from sexual trauma, they are going to act out in ways because of what has happened to them. And that is why, no matter how lovey-dovey they make it sound, how much they beat around the bush, it's still abuse no matter what.
So since then, have other therapists or other professionals sought your advice about zoophilia when they go into their own work?
Yes. I've had several therapists from all over the country, actually all over the world, contact me with questions and supervision, because I also supervise other therapists.
When you're supervising other therapists, what opportunities does that present to incorporate what you've learned? What kind of things do you see that you were able to provide as guidance?
Well, I think, like I said, the most important thing is to change the way you look at it, to change your perception. It's
right.
not necessarily abuse.
Just how quick people who are being interviewed respond makes me think this is all scripted. And another thing, I cannot believe for a second that this is a therapist, a person who is supposed to help people with mental disorders, which zoophilia falls into, and so does pedophilia, necrophilia. All of that is a mental disorder. And she says that zoophilia is not abuse. Has she actually seen the psychology of the animals who are touched? Not just that, they can also develop all sorts of infections and hemorrhaging in their areas. It's like, it's appalling, absolutely appalling. I have no words to describe it other than it's gross.
There are cases where there is, but in most cases that I've encountered, it's not. And in my experience, the people who have sex with animals actually really love their animals. They treat them as partners. Some of them have married them. So it's very different. And when people hear this, they're like, oh my God, they never thought about it that way.
They've never thought about it that way because it's not true. It is a lie. This whole podcast is made up of lies. Every single person on it does nothing but lie. I refuse to believe that nobody had an issue with this woman spreading around false information about zoophilia and encouraging zoophiles to continue with this behavior instead of, doing her job and trying to help these people not hurt animals anymore. It's just, I don't understand. And the people who say they're in love with their animals but continue to, sexually touch them, they're delusional. They're beyond delusional, because there are people who have romantic relationships that don't have sex. So if these people really love their animals, they would not, and I mean they would not, hurt them or touch them sexually. That is what a predator does. And that is what predators say as a way to get away with their actions. They are trying to guilt people and manipulate people into thinking that this is normal behavior when it is not. And it's sickening.
It's basically you're taking them through that same reassessment that you would have gone through ASEC training, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, your research led to a whole book. A bunch of people came to you and gave you all that information. And you expressed hope that it would spark awareness and interest in others to do more work in the area revolving around zoophilia and bestiality.
Okay, in therapy or in psychology, there's understanding the patient to know exactly what's wrong and how to help them. And it's important that you don't shame them, obviously, because that would just cause more damage to their mental health. And of course, it would lower their motivation to want to get better. And then there's being compliant, completely compliant with this. At first, I thought she was just simply trying to, learn more about the disorder so she would know how to help these people like, most therapists would. But no, it's just, she seems to be being manipulated by these people into thinking this is normal, loving behavior when it really isn't. And considering she wrote a book about mother and son incest, who's to say she's not more accepting of other degenerate sexual behaviors, like necrophilia or pedophilia? It's just that simple. All these things are connected. None of this is normal. The rest of this part is just extremely boring, although this woman does bring up, of course, not surprisingly, that other psychologists were against her study because it was spreading false information. Are you surprised? So, instead of that, I'm going to see if I can find another one of their cringe-worthy songs that I can, just show you, just to torture you.
You're so wild and so pure. I don't care what people say. No, they won't change my love for you. You set me free, you make me feel.
Through this, I think I got a better song that suits them, and I'm very sorry for having to torture you with that awful, awful singing by our rat boyfriend. Or friend.
I wanna fuck a dog in the ass.
And also, Don't bother going to their website unless you want to see realistic animal junk drawn on their avatars. Because yes, they everything revolving around animals has to be sexual. Because they're degenerates. And I want to thank you for watching this video. I really want to thank you. I know it's not much, but it's something I really felt like I had to speak about. So, thank you very much for watching.